Batman's a great character. Like Ian Fleming's James Bond, he's capable of being reinvented to suit the tastes and values of each new generation. From his creation over 60 years ago by Bob Kane, with a significant assist from Bill Finger, he's gone through numerous changes, from the everyman vigilante of the early 40s comics, to the campy servant of the establishment in the 60s TV series, to Frank Miller's troubled and gloomy has-been of the 80s. A series of movies released in the 90s helped to reshape the Caped Crusader's image as the slightly disturbed agent of justice who works beyond the law. About 10 years ago, Warner Brothers used the character as a vehicle for a new animated series. Overseen primarily by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini, it was an immediate hit among fans of the comics due to its high production values, mature stories and dead-on tone. What's cool about Batman is that he's a rich guy with a lot of fancy toys that he uses to quash the criminal ambitions of the weirdest cast of psychotics the entertainment world has ever presented. The series itself has spun off a seemingly endless stream of other cartoons and animated movies, from Mask of the Phantasm to the Justice League. It's this vision that's offered up by the latest Batman game, Batman Vengeance. And when I say latest, I should clarify that this is merely a port of the same version of the game that came out last year for the PS2 and Xbox. And when I say merely, I mean that the game takes advantage of nothing new on the PC beyond supporting higher resolutions and configurable controls. It's a tough sell for a year-old game, and when the end result is merely average, we're left wondering whether or not it was even worth the effort. The story begins quite well, with Batman rescuing a woman named Mary from slightly ambiguous circumstances. It seems she's in a building that's about to blow up, so Bats runs in and saves her. This starts you on the trail of a few of the series' key, but overused, villains. The Joker's to be expected, of course, and Harley Quinn's a great addition that the cartoon has made to the Batman legend. But how many times have we had to sit through yet another episode starring Poison Ivy or Mr. Freeze? With the broad cast of characters that could be included, I was a little irritated that the four who dominate the series dominate the game as well. From this rescue, Batman starts investigating another kidnapping, gets framed, and eventually clears his name and saves the city. Along the way, Batman will be given frequent progress updates and clues for puzzles from Batgirl located back at the Batcave. These add a bit of personality and direction to the game, but are used far too frequently in surprisingly badly chosen places. Stopping to ask Batgirl about the location of a kidnapped victim while you're in the middle of a fight, or worse yet, while you're being electrocuted, is just plain stupid. Luckily the game pauses the action during these moments, but it's still a huge distraction and takes me completely out of whatever slightly interesting situation I might have been engaged in. It doesn't help that the levels themselves are so straightforward. For the most part, you're channeled through a single path with very little room to explore alternate approaches to your goals. The obstacles and puzzles that are placed in your path are challenging enough, but the solutions are also put pretty much right in front of your face, so you'll rarely spend more than a minute or two trying to get past a particular point. For instance, there are a seemingly endless number of switches throughout the game, each positioned right next to a death trap that wouldn't even fool Daredevil. Apart from the ubiquitous switches, there's almost no interaction with anything else in the levels. In fact, the bat grapple that you use to access certain areas only works on certain pre-placed surfaces. You won't be able to improvise at all in the game. Hell, the grappling locations are even pointed out to you once you're near enough to use them. You don't even have to look for them at all. Otherwise, the gadgets you get to use are neat enough. Batarangs and stun bombs and grappling hooks are par for the course for Batman, and they're reasonable well implemented here. The fight engine is better than it appears at first glance. While you've just got the basic punch and kick buttons, you can chain together moves to create some impressive attacks. Better still, as you progress through the game, you're eligible for new power moves that help you keep up with the increasing numbers and abilities of the bad guys. While Batman has hundreds of unique and convincing animations, most of which seem frame-for-frame grabs from the cartoon, they're chained together and interpolated so that the game can often seem arbitrarily difficult. Getting the timing of certain moves tight enough that they come one right after another is a bit of a pain, and you can occasionally lose a move if you don't have the rhythm down. This is especially irritating when you're trying to jump and glide a short distance. But the bigger problem is the camera. While the game seems on the surface to offer a lot of flexibility with both first and third-person modes, there are significant frustrations with each. To begin with, the camera tracks behind Batman in a third-person view. But the camera lags too far behind in terms of rotation, meaning that Batman can round a corner and be facing enemies you can't even see because the camera hasn't turned with him. To get the camera centered behind him, you have to enter and exit first-person mode. First-person mode is also the only mode in which you can use any of Batman's impressive gadgets, excepting the Batcuffs. But that means that every time you want to shoot a Batarang or shoot your Bat-grapple at an object, you have to enter first-person. But in first-person mode, it's literally impossible to throw punches or kicks or even open doors or activate switches. Add on top of that the poor aiming system and you've got a real pain. One of Batman's staples is his impressive array of vehicles, with the Batmobile sitting securely at the top of the list. But while these vehicles feature prominently in the myth, their appearances in the game leave a great deal to be desired. While the car is cool, it makes a very short appearance in the game, and even that takes place under circumstances that never bother to remind you that you're driving through Gotham City. Instead, it's all a big reflex test that's more frustrating than challenging. Things are no better with the Batplane and its incredibly distracting targeting reticle. Some gamers will be turned off by the relatively flat look of the game, but it's an excellent approximation of the cartoon's visual style. The Art Deco/Art Nouveau designs were a great direction for the series and work really well in the game. A lot of gamers expect to see more detail, but the slightly flat rendering of the environments and characters put them directly in touch with their four-color, comic book roots. What I can't get around is why the cutscenes look so god-awful. I'm not sure what resolution they're running in, but it can't even be 640 by 480, and the terrible blurring and pixelization takes away whatever dramatic impact they might otherwise have. Oddly, I don't remember the cutscenes looking like this when I played through the Xbox version. Things are much better in the music and sound department. The team has managed to get the cast from the show to do the voiceovers. Kevin Conroy's Batman is dead on, slightly gravely and disturbed but keeping it in control. Mark Hamill's Joker works very well too, as do the rest of the cast performances. The voiceovers for the game were also handled by the voiceover director for the series, Andrea Romano, so there's not any weakness there. Musically, the game makes frequent use of the tracks from the cartoon. These lend a tremendous amount of atmosphere and nuance to the action on the screen. In the area of sound effects, things are less impressive, or at least much less noticeable. While this is a great attempt to bring the strengths of the cartoon series to the video game world, it falls short in the area of control and suffers in comparison to the console versions that were available almost a year ago. I'm not against ports of good games, although Batman is merely that, but for a game to come to the PC nearly a year later offering only higher resolutions and keyboard support, I have to wonder what the point of it all is. While you've got plenty of people who will be attracted to the subject and style of the game, there's not much else going on here. Ultimately, I enjoyed the experience less than I would have if the controls had been a bit tighter. Still, for the $30 asking price, it's a decent enough game for fans of the